Okay. Well, hello everyone. This is the purpose of this short presentation is to inform you about APA requirements. As you are ready to do your paper, there are some things that you really have to pay attention to so that you do not lose points. And I'll walk you through the process step by step so that you make sure that you follow these directions, and then you avoid many of the mistakes that some students make, and it makes them lose quite a few points. So what we have here is an APA sample. It's a paper that is written in APA style. APA style, as you know, is the manual for writers of research. That manual was written by the American Psychological Association, and it is used, this manual is used by researchers in the social fields, like social, medical, like all allied health professions use this manual. So everything that's in here is required. It is not, that you use this or that. So first, when you do your reference list at the end of a paper, you do not call it works cited. You do not call it bibliography. We call the references that you use a single name. You call them references. So at the very, very end of your paper, if your paper is 5 or 6 pages, whatever it is, I don't recall, depending on the word limit, I do not go by page numbers anymore. So depending on the word limit, at the very end, you have one complete page where you have all your references. Again, you put a title on top and you call them references. So you have in the guidelines everything that you need step by step. And if you lose a point, it will be because you did not follow a particular step. So again, I just want to walk you over this to make sure that you are aware of what I'm looking for. As you see here on top, where it says running head. When you have a paper, this is the cover page. What you are looking at now is not your first page. It might have the number 1 on it, but it is not your first page. This is your cover page. It has no content other than the title and nothing else. It tells who you are. So as you look at the running head, the running head includes whatever words of the title that can fit in the running head. And as you notice, all of the letters in the running head are capitalized. And you do the same in the next page, like in the header of every page. You just put in the running head. You don't have to say running head. This is just for demonstration here. But you just write the title, or whatever parts of the title that fit into the running head. You put them there until you can't put any more. So sometimes half of your title fits in. That is totally fine. The running head it doesn't meet the requirements for the title. So the title of your paper is like your name. If you do not have a name, people wouldn't know how to identify you. A book must have a main title, a chapter of a book, a story, whatever it is. So if someone submits a paper with no title at all, that paper should not be graded. It is useless. No matter how much the student puts, how much work they put into it, it has no title. The title defines the general topic, what you are going to speak about. It should reflect It should summarize the content. Imagine if you are going to look for a book in a library and you want to find the book on sugarcane. And then instead of that, you have a book that has a title that is called Sugarcane. And then you find it is talking about submarines or talking about chickens. So there's a purpose for these things. Now look at the cover page and you will see in the center here, as explained, it puts the title. That is the main title. The main title is always centered in the page. So it says varying definitions of online communication and their effects on relationship research. That is the title of the paper. And then under it you have the person's name because that is the author. And then you have the name of the university. There is no need, do not put author's notes or anything. Just leave that blank. All I need you for the cover page is to say the main title and to put your name and the university and put the course and the course number. And also on every page you need to put your running head. Now we go to the first page. Yes, it does have page 2. Number wise, it has page 2. But that is the first page. Actually, this is not the first page. Sorry, this is the abstract page. The abstract is a summary of your paper. So it only has a running head and nothing else. It doesn't have the title. So that is again not your first page. Your first page is the page when you start to discuss the content in detail. So in this sample, this is your first page. That is the page when you actually begin to now discuss your topic in detail. You notice the running head is the same as it in the previous pages. And the title of the paper is on top of the page here, centered on top of the first content page. Yes, it does say page 3. It doesn't matter. But this is your first content page. And then you start either with an introduction or with you can make another title, call it introduction. But you don't have for the introduction if you do not want. It's optional. So for the title again, even though you have included it in your cover page, it doesn't suffice. It is not the same. You must include the title again in the first content page. If that is missing, the person would lose 10% as it is stated in the guidelines of the assignment. So missing just this line on top of the first content page, that would cost 10% of the entire grade of the assignment. So now look at the title. Unlike the running head, the title is only capitalized for first words, initials, first letter of every word. Of course, whatever you have to capitalize in I'll mention this to you later about something else. But look at this title. You capitalize only the initials of every word in the title. You notice also that this title is not bold. It is just, as you could see, plain print. And as a rule, again, all academic research papers have to be a font number 12, Times New Roman. That is the font that has been universally kind of used. So again, Times New Roman, font number 12, and you go down and the title is not bold. It is just plain print and centered on top of the first content page. Then you go here, the person puts an introduction, and you could call it introduction or not, but then you go down and you find, where it says literature review, that is a subtitle. There's the main title, and there are secondary titles or subtitles. A subtitle, it discusses sections, within your topic. And again, in your guidelines, if you go there, it tells you if you do not put subtitles in your paper, that will be worth 10%. So you need to put you put titles, divide your main topic into, secondary ideas, and make subtitles or secondary titles. Now, what you notice about the secondary titles here, when it says literature review, it is centered and it is bold. All subtitles are in bold print. So you go down, and every page is going to continue to show the running head. That's in the margin. It is not like it's in the margin of the page. It's not in the actual body of the paper, of the page. So you go down, and you're going to find more secondary titles. Here's the discussion. That's a secondary or a subtitle or a secondary title. Centered, bold, capitalized, the first letter of every word will be capitalized. And then you go down, you could have other secondary titles, like discussion has a smaller titles under it. Like you notice, limitations of these studies. That's a title inside of the discussion, section, or the discussion title. If you have titles or areas smaller than the secondary areas, then you put that on the side. You also make them bold, and you make every first letter of every word capitalized. So you can go down, and it follows exactly the same system. So all of these secondary titles are under the discussion subtitle. So now you finish the discussion, you go to conclusions. That's another, secondary title. And then you come after the conclusions. We'll look at the references. You notice references, and you notice how they are written. We'll come back to this later, but let's go back to the in-text citation. We call these in-text citations, or embody, or citations in the body of your paper. The body of your paper begins here. It doesn't include your abstract is not part of your body of the paper. It's just an introduction that comes before. Your cover is not part of the body. So the body begins on this page, which is called number 3 here. It is very important that you document the source of the information, where you get your information from. If you do not document, that means that what you are saying are your words. Whatever ideas, whatever things that you are discussing, I would understand that they are your own, that you created these ideas, that you invented them, that you are the author 100%. That is if I do not see a citation. So let's look here at this paper, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the person begins saying, numerous studies have been conducted on various facets of internet relationships, and then they speak about these studies, what they do, and says, however, contradictory results are suggested within this research because blah 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 blah. Now this is a general introduction. What the person is saying here is general information. That person didn't take any specific piece of information and say, make a claim about it. Just speaking about all the literature, all the research that was reviewed as part of what the research for the paper. Now, the person is going to start speaking about a study, taking some of the studies that are mentioned in the introduction, and is going to speak about particular points. So Cummings, Butler, you notice comma, and A-N-D, okay, and Kraut, and then parentheses, say the date, and then say suggest. You notice in the present tense, because a book is live, you read it anytime, it has facts. Suggest that face-to-face interactions are more effective than blah, blah, blah. You notice face-to-face, then parentheses, it says FTF. That means that the person is going to mention that acronym after. And when they mention it, then you understand what it means. So if you have an acronym, you need to, the first time you mention a term, spell out the entire term, and then put in parentheses, put the acronym. Like the United Nations, blah, blah, blah. When you say the United Nations, parentheses, UN. And then later, you do not have to say the whole name. You just say the acronym. So then, this is one way of, kind of doing an embodied citation. The reason this person started with Cummings, Butler, and Kraut, it means that what was said before are the words of the author of the paper. They are not phrased, they are not necessarily coming from the Cummings, Butler, and Kraut reference. These are the words of that author of the paper. Now, when you say Cummings, then we know what is coming next is from this source. So what happens is they go, okay, they found that face-to-face interactions are more effective than blah, blah, blah. And then coming down, continuing going down, they say this paper examines Cummings et al. Research against other blah, blah, blah. So here, because the author speaking about Cummings, Butler, and Kraut, they gave a general fact, a general, description of the paper that was done, that was cited 2002. That is the paper completed by these people. They did not quote. They did not. It just gave like a whole overview of that research. This is why you do not see the page number of a paper. When you do, you report information from a paper, you do, and you speak about general facts, like the summary, the whole study found, that, for example, lead is bad to the brain. You don't have to cite exact pages of that. Because that fact, when you read the title of the paper, it says it. When you read the abstract, it says it. Everywhere in the paper will say that fact. Now, so the general rule is if you summarize information from a paper or article, you do not have to put the page number unless you quote directly from that paper. So if they were to say, Cummings, Butler, and Kraut, 2002, said, and quotation marks, blah, 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 close quotation marks, then you must put a parenthesis right after the quote, and you say page as P, lowercase, dot, and put the page number. I'll show you more examples as we come down. So then, literature review and Cummings et al., 2002, and then summary article reviewing, this and this and that. They also continue to do it in general terms, and then at the end of what they are saying here, what comes from Cummings, they put a citation. Cummings et al. and comma 2002. And you notice again, there is no quote, there is no page number, because all of this is just summarizing the entire study in a few words. So not necessary to put the page number. And then what is said after, the strength of this research, blah, blah, blah. You notice that here, if there's not actually continues, and at the end, they put Cummings et al. 2002 again. That means also these words are coming, summarizing this reference as well. Okay, next. So you could see that's one way to begin. You can say Cummings, for example, the author. If it is 2 people, you do not say at all. If it's 3, you do not say at all. If it is 4, you just put the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 authors, you put them. If it is 5 or more, then you put et al. So, and then you could, keep going until you, let's see, find other ways. After you finish your slide, you can start something without saying the author's name at first, like this. The strength of the relationship was predicted, blah, 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 and then you have Cummings et al. That's another way to do it. But the goal of how we do these citations in body of the paper is to differentiate what comes from what source. So if I say here Cummings et al., I keep going until I find, for example, here in this project, when you keep going, you should be able to find another name referring to another source. So you will know what comes before this citation belongs to this source. What comes after belongs to another source. So we find other examples. Okay, so here the author speaks about Cummings et al. 2002, and then you keep going speaking. Everything is coming now from Cummings. Now, as studies, for example, I am as studies by who et al. 2004. That means no, this is actually part of the previous sentence. Would like to see a transition to another author in the same paper, so that you know how to differentiate. Yeah, they are using more as an example. You should not be using the same source on and on and on and on. You should vary your sources. You shouldn't rely on one particular article like for a whole page and not include other ones. You need to, again, take the points from different sources and put them together. One way is, for example, to cite. Let's say I'm going to take one of these examples and insert something. Let's say here the person speaks about, information from Cummings et al. Cummings et al. 2002's review of HomeNet, blah, 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 and then comes at the end and says, as cited in Cummings et al., and then period. Suppose that I would like to add, say that this, what I'm adding here, belongs to me. For example, let's say, if I'm the author, I would not have to say anything. But let's say it belongs to Smith. So I come at the end and say parentheses here, and I put Smith, and then comma, to 2005, and just close parentheses. If I put a quote, I put then Smith 2002 or 2005, comma, page, and put the exact page of where this quote came. It is important because when you write a paper, it is like writing a report to a courtroom. And when they take every fact and say, where did you get that fact? I should take your paper and point to every single sentence and say, I am going to check if that sentence is correct or if that fact is true. I should be able to take the author's name, go to the references, find the article, and access the article and read and go to the page and find exactly the words. That is the whole purpose. Verification. We need to verify the sources that you get your information from. It is proof. So you notice now, if you do not put in body or in text citations, your paper will be worth absolutely nothing. Because the purpose of that research is not to have your own opinion. If it was, I would have asked you to write a reflection paper. But I am asking, or any assignment that says a research paper, is that you go and search sources and bring information from sources, add your ideas, analyze. But, if you just put, give a paper that has no in-text citation, then that is very, very serious. Number one, it will make you liable to plagiarism because we know the information is coming from other sources. So we go and check, and then there will be evidence of plagiarism. You say, oh, I didn't know. That doesn't excuse you because the rules are posted and you should know them. In the meantime, we say, I'm expressing my opinion. No, that is not what we are asking for. We would like you to tell us the research, what the research is saying, give evidence. So again, this is not just something trivial. It is something serious that you need to pay attention to. And this is why I'm recording this and taking the time to do so. Now let's look at the references now at the end and see how they are documented. We said the word references is centered, small, centered, not bold. So this word, the references and your main title are not bold. Then you say comings, and then you notice we do not ever use first names. We do not ever use second names or middle names of authors. We only use the last name, and then you put a comma, and you put the initial, the first letter of a first name and the middle name. So Cummings, you say Cummings, comma, J, period, and then N, period, and then comma, and you say Butler, then comma, B, and then period, and then comma, and you notice the ampersand. Okay, you do not say AND before the last author in a series. Before the last author, you put the ampersand. And then it's a Kraut, and then comma, and then R dot, and then you put the date right after that. So in APA, the date comes after the last author. Again, if you have 7 authors, whatever number it is, before the last author, before the last name of the last author, you are going to put the ampersand. And then now notice how the study's title is written. In this here in references, you write the title as a sentence, as you write a sentence, exactly as you write a sentence. The only capital letter will be the first letter of the first word. So what you can capitalize in a sentence has to be capitalized in the title of a book or the title of an article. For example, if you have the word Washington, then you have to put the word wash, obviously capitalized. If you have someone's name, you have to make it capitalized. A place, whatever you cannot, you must capitalize in a sentence must also be capitalized in a title of a paper or a book. So you notice again, Q is small. The only single capitalized letter here in the title here is the T. Okay. Now, after the title, you put a period. And then you write the name of the journal right after that, as it is written in the journal itself. You notice the title of the name of the journal is italicized. Then you put a comma, not a period. You put a comma after the name of the journal. And then you put the number of the journal, number 43, and each number usually, in many journals, they have, say, they produce it once a year, for example, and you say number 45. And then every year they produce it 4 times. They make a number for 1 year. And in that year, the journal is issued 4 times, for example, even though they have the same number, 45, 45, 45. So the first one that appears, say, in January, they could call it issue number 1. Issue is in parentheses here. And then the second one, maybe in March, it will be issue number 2. So 45 is for the volume, and the issue is in parentheses if that journal happens to have an issue. No pun intended. And then you put a comma, and then you put the page numbers, the page range of the your article or your study. So here, if you open that, get volume number 45, get issue number 7, open to page 103, you should find the title of the study. You should find that first page of that paper. And then that, you say dash, and then 108, that is where the paper ends. So this range has to be there. It shows where in the journal this article begins and where in the journal this article ends. So this is exactly what you must do, and you have, again, points for every single reference that you use. Now, what if you are using a book, not an article? What would you do? Actually, before I move on to books, here's another article that has 2 titles. It has a primary title, Friendships Through IM, and then 2 dots. You notice column, and after it you have a secondary title. This is about friendships through IM. But what is the exact area about instant messaging that you are going to cover that has to do with that? So examining the relationship between instant messaging and intimacy. So that is the focus. So it is defined in the secondary title. But what you need to know about this secondary title is that you begin the first word, the first letter of the first word with capital letter. So if you have a title that has 2 dots in the middle, you have to capitalize again the first word of that. And you notice the same exact way you document like the first article we discussed, except that this journal does not have issues. It has only numbers. So number 10 and then comma, page 38 to 49. Please notice that we do not use P in this reference page. You don't say page this or that. You just simply put the numbers. If you have a book, they don't have a book here cited. If you have a book, you write it exactly, the title exactly like the title of the journal article, except for the book, you make the title in italics. That is the only difference. And then, of course, you put the publisher's, the city of where the publisher is existing, and you put the exact publishing company. So, actually, let's see if they use, if they provide any books. No, I wanted to see, but for books, you just, if you want, you just look at any of your research papers and look and see how they cite a book. Again, you know it is a book if the title is italicized. So this is again, this should give you exactly all that you need to know as far as APA citations are concerned, and what you use for your paper. You must make sure to please read the guidelines. The guidelines take a lot of time to write, and they are supposed to give you guidance. They're not written just to make your life harder or difficult. So when I look at these, take the guidelines, when I grade papers, and I go item by item by item, there's a section there that says what if. That tells you if you do not follow a particular rule, these are the points that you will miss. So please do read the guidelines. Please follow the guidelines. One last point is, I'd like to make is, you are being asked to write about a particular topic for a particular course. You have to make sure that the topic you are covering is addressed in this course, that it belongs in the field. For example, if you are taking the language acquisition class, for example, and you are writing a paper, I tell you in the guidelines specifically that if you have a topic that deals with reading disabilities or reading development, that is not language acquisition. It is not language development. It's literacy. It doesn't belong. It is not something that we cover in this course. So I don't want you to go through the work and just spend all this time and then come in the end and say, oh, I did not read, or I didn't think that reading or writing, for example, was a problem. So you need to just follow the guidelines I give you in the syllabus, in the guidelines, in the grading rubric. And if you do so, I can assure you that you will do very, very well. So it is a matter of just, again, following the directions. And I hope that you do really well. And again, I just hope to see that you implement APA guidelines and all the guidelines I ask you. So thank you and goodbye.